think about insurance, they think about life insurance for themselves, or disability, or critical illness, but not for business owners. So these are the topics. Everyone can read. I've had it up for a while, so I'm not going to repeat it because I only have 10 minutes. And that gives me about 1.5 minutes per topic.
Go.
So I ask one question. I'll ask if everyone can hold their question till the end, and then that way so we'll get off track.
Is the timer running?
Yes. Timer's running?
Yes, there's a timer. The official timekeeper.
What, wait.
So disability insurance. Okay, so disability insurance for I would say this disability insurance is the most basic coverage that you can have. We'll call it basic. Really, disability insurance is so necessary because if something happens to you, there won't be any income coming in. And really, your greatest asset is your ability to produce income. If you don't have the ability to produce income, then no one's going to be around to pay the bills. So the question is here, when you look at disability insurance, what's the difference between somebody who's an employee versus an owner? Okay, so an owner is responsible for taking care of all the businesses. The employee is only responsible for themselves. A little later I'll talk about benefit plans, but when you have disability, if you're an employee of a company, then most companies have some sort of benefit plan set up, and the employees will be covered under the benefit plan. However, the owner is not necessarily covered under the benefit plan. So that's usually what has to be taken into consideration on disability insurance. So what I do is I sit down with the owner and look at what type of plan is required for them and what is the most basic coverage, and make sure that that is in place. That's what I call the building block of business owners. Second is overhead insurance. And this isn't covering your hat, like me, I wear a hat. So first question is, okay, I'm going to use Stefano as an example, because I know Stefano has a store, he pays rent, he's got equipment, you've probably got a loan to pay off.
That, yeah.
Right, and
How's
also
that?
an employee. So if something happens to Stefano, who's going to take care of those things? And the answer is, there isn't anybody. So usually, besides disability insurance, the very basic coverage that we put in place for business owners is overhead insurance. So that covers things like rent, utilities, and salaries. And what that does is it makes sure that your most basic expenses are covered if something should happen to you. Yeah, so my point here was that really what you need is you need to have some minimal coverage in place. If something should happen to you, then those expenses are covered. So obviously, if you know somebody, I always say, you know somebody who's opening up a business, these are the basic things that we put into place. If somebody's starting a restaurant, opening up a print shop, opening up a store of some sort, then the idea is to get some overhead insurance coverage in place to cover that basic amount. The next thing is, and I talked about a loan. So every single bank that loans you money wants you to have insurance in place. So what the banks love is they love having collateral insurance on you. It's kind of like mortgage insurance, but it's for a loan. So how it works is that what I usually talk to here about is what's the difference between bank life insurance and your own life insurance. Okay, collateral insurance that's owned by the bank, whatever amount that you have outstanding. So let's say you take out a loan for $500,000 to buy some equipment to start up your business. Okay, so over time, the idea is that you're going to pay down the loan. Okay, so let's say after about 5 years, now you've got $300,000 left. if you had a loan from the bank for $500,000 and the bank made you take collateral insurance, something happens to you in this year, and say that's year 5, it'll pay off the $500,000, sorry, the $300,000 that's left outstanding at that point, and that's all that'll get paid off. However, you're still paying the same rate on that insurance as if it was $500,000. So what we do with business owners is we say, let's get some insurance that will cover the loan for $500,000. That amount stays stable over time. And then if something happens to you, the $500,000, the $300,000 would get paid off at that point in time, and the other $200,000 would go into your estate. So it will at least remain. And usually the cost is a lot less for your own life insurance. How am I doing for time? 5 minutes. Okay. So, next is key man insurance. Does anyone know what a key man is? I have some keys. You must know what key man insurance is.
Well, usually general manager, owner, principal operator of the business.
Right.
Or
So the
or
key man
majority
is the most important person in the company.
Key man.
Okay? So it could be that you are an owner manager. Most of us here are owner managers. We run our own businesses. However, if you get into a bigger company, you might have somebody who's a manager, but they don't own the company. So they'd be the key man. If something happened to that person, then it would be disastrous. Say it's your top salesman, it's your marketing manager, it's your warehouse manager, one of those key people. So what key man insurance does is it actually puts some money in place. So if something should happen to that key person, so there's some money in place to replace them, to do a couple of things. Number one, it hires a replacement. Number two, it will give you some money for recruiting, to pay the recruiting costs. Number three, it'll also give you some money to cover the losses, because it takes a while to replace those key people. So it's some losses. And sometimes we also put key man insurance in place that if it actually builds up in value, and if the key person doesn't die, which usually happens, the person doesn't die, there's actually some cash value built in, and we can use it for a retirement plan, or to actually take some cash out and let the key person buy into the company. Because a lot of times you want to keep your key people happy, so you can use that money as an incentive for someone to buy into the company. That's the most important thing there. Now I'm down to 3.5 minutes. Okay. 2 minutes, oh no. So, the next is buy-sell funding. This probably will come into play with Babar. Whenever you're dealing with somebody who is a partner, is anyone here in a partnership, or is everybody an individual owner? Okay. So, where's this partnership? No? Okay. So in an partnership, the key elements are, number one, is the partnership agreement. And there's usually a clause in there, which is shotgun or a buy-sell clause. And what it says is that at any point in time, one of the partners can buy out the other one. Sometimes the partner will come and say, I want to buy you out, and the other partner will say, no, I'm going to buy you out. And there's usually a set amount in place. However, the other part of the partnership agreement says that if one of the partners passes away, you have to have insurance in place to buy out the other partner. So that's called funded insurance. So the company actually goes out and buys a life insurance so that, say, Eurus and I are in partnership together. We have a business, and something happens to me. I always kill myself. I don't want to kill my partner, right? So something happens to me, and now Eurus doesn't want to have my wife as a partner, because my wife really doesn't want to know anything about the business. So what we do is we have some insurance funding that comes into place. So let's say we have Eurus and Harold, Carol dies, so now we got my wife, Carol, who's left over. So what happens is, the money will come into place. Now I'm done, right? Okay, so.
You just shot your wife.
Actually, the money gets paid into the company as a death benefit. And then that death benefit will go to my wife, and the person left over ends up with the company. So that way, the company doesn't have to figure out a way to pay off my wife. So usually, there's usually 4 ways that companies would find money to pay off. Number 1 is to find money in their cash resources to pay off the other person. Number 2 is to borrow money. Number 3 is to sell off some assets. And the 4th one is, what I like, is life insurance. So the idea is that if there's a partnership situation, there's 2 things we need. One, besides having a lawyer here to do partnership agreements, is to have some funding in place so that we get a partnership agreement in place, and then the partnership agreement is funded so that if something happens to one of the partners, they get paid off. And I didn't get to talk about employee benefit plans, but if anybody has an employee benefit plan and wants to have it reviewed, I've done it for Stefano, and his plan was very good, so we can replace it. Or you know somebody who has a small business and is looking for an employee benefit plan, we take care of that as well. So, and I knew I wasn't going to get to business succession planning because I was too optimistic with my time. But one of the most important things is to make sure that you have a business succession plan in place. And I can work with you on using insurance to make sure that there's enough money in your estate to pay off the taxes and have some money left over for the family. So, does anybody have any questions?
The key manager, do you have key woman insurance too?
It's actually